This is Tom, our superintendent, Bellevue Community School District in Bellevue, Iowa, coming to you with this week's Believe in the Blue update. Also, want to tell people make sure you check out the school website, Facebook, Twitter to find the weekly comic, kind of a district newsletter, real brief, one front side, some upcoming dates of importance, and along with some pictures of what's going on, just a short message. Check that out. That is on the front page of our website. Each and every week that way. It gets updated on Friday, so that'll be there tomorrow. I want to give you some updates on the board meeting from September 9th, which was Monday night. We had some approved open enrollments that way, and all this information is also on our website under the district page superintendent link that way. So approved open enrollments and resignations. Recommendations to hire, we had Trish Kilberg as a full-time special education associate, Matt Yeager switching from middle school girls track to middle school boys track, Heidi Keeter will be joining us part-time in the preschool. Those are just some things that way. In addition to that, we talked about common curriculum. I spoke about that along with Mr. Raker, the middle school high school principal, and Mrs. Hartung Schroeder, the elementary principal, on some aspects of what our professional learning dealt with, and some of those things were relevance. A short thing here I put down, when you want to make something relevant, hit close to home to people. For adults, I'm talking about that, it was relevance. If your spouse says, I'm looking for ways to make you interesting and appealing, it's probably not a good sign. So once you look at a lesson and ask, how am I going to make this material relevant? You have admitted that the material is not actually relevant. We need to make sure that our material is relevant, what we're teaching kids, they can relate to the real life, to the real world, whatever word you want to use there. That is the key, and that's what we're striving for that way. We need engagement and passion from our students. It needs to be driven and focused on where are our students at and what are their interests that way. We also talked about working together in the 3 C's this year, an emphasis, and please give me feedback on this, but communication, communication, and communication. The 3 C's, it is an expectation and it has to happen. We need to let people know what's going on. We also talked about professional ethics, what we post on social media, what we do outside of school. All those kind of things are very important as we look at role modeling for our students and what's going on. Let's talk about Comet School Finance. The district finished about $200,000, a little more than that, in the plus side in cash that way. It's a real positive. We were hoping to be a little over $100,000, so we did better overall there. We also talked about the aspect of the upcoming fiscal year and where we're at with funds. Our unspent authorized budget went up, which is always a good sign. We also talked about the extension of the PEPAL that way, and that'll be on the ballot in November. That way to just it's a continuation of the tax that's already there that's used for physical improvements to the building. We look at our science rooms, we look at just different things happening technology-wise, look at our parking lot, look at roofs, everything like that that we do. There's also a list of those things online as well. The key thing about school finance is driven by enrollment. Right now, our enrollment at the elementary is up over 10 students. Elementary, middle school, high school is down about 8 or so. So we're going to be even to probably +2, +4, somewhere in that range when count actually happens at the beginning of October, just so you're aware about that. Enrollment's a big one, and we had an increase. We have an increase in registration of first graders. Want to see how it look right now. The board gave approval to start interviewing for another first grade section, so we are doing that. We will hopefully be offering a position yet this week or beginning of next week, and someone starting with an immersion or inclusion into that first grade room with the 2 first grade teachers, Mrs. Roth and Mrs. Ray, and then splitting up that class accordingly. Right now we're 26 apiece in each one of those sections, and with what we do being a student-centered environment, getting students involved in their learning, that is too many in a room, we believe. So that's why we're looking at a 3rd section there. We also have a 3rd section in kindergarten. Creating a 3rd section means we're taking away the art room. That's going to go into the teacher's workroom, and that is a concern that the board had when we decided to do this that way. But we also believe that it's very important to provide our students an appropriate education that way. So there will be a 3rd section of first grade. We'll get out more details about that in the near future. But those 3 sections will work very closely together, and some crossing up of students between classes and things like that based on their needs, based on their interests, and based on their learning overall. So it's a very good thing. So we're looking for those qualified teachers for there, a qualified teacher for that. the blue, we have some strong candidates for that, and we'll move forward with that with an inclusion next week and then getting into the main room the following week that way. So just some information there. We talked about some conference attendance at the Iowa Association of School Board meeting. Sir Ken Robinson is speaking, one of my favorite people that way. He's one of the speakers there. We're actually waiting on some of that until after board elections on November 5th. That's coming up once again, along with that Pebble vote on November 5th. And I think there's also some city council seats in the mayor's seat up and possibly something else I'm not aware of. But those are just some things that we encourage you to go out and vote. We also had a reading the board did. Our comment reading and reflection dealt with a book from George Couros that is called Innovate Inside the Box. And we talked about why innovation in education is critical. We say, well, this worked for me when I was in school. Well, that worked for me when I was in school. How long ago was that? Maybe it was 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago. Maybe it was only 5 years ago. But things have changed. And we have to continually look at what we want for our students and what are we doing for our students. There's a quote here that says there's a misalignment sometimes between our aspirations, what we believe that learners need, and what we actually do in schools. The challenge I had to the board was, what are we doing in schools? Is it meeting the needs, or is it doing what we want schools to be doing for our students? And that is a continuous question that we have to keep asking ourselves. And as the board says there, we need to be process driven, really look at the process we're following to get the eventual results that we want. So we're results driven, but it's the process that gets us there. It may take longer, it may not be smooth, but we have to go through the process to get the overall results. We want successful people after they leave the Bellevue Community School District. You know, there's another quote in the reading there. Our system was designed for a different era where standardization was the goal, and as a result, is not intended to develop the skills our students need to be successful today. Changing the education system can seem daunting if we focus on all the barriers. The Committee of 10 in 1892 created the rules that reflected the values of the late 1800s and designed a system to prepare learners for an industrial era. Our world and our needs have changed and will continue to, and the only way to change the system is through people who believe in themselves and our collective future enough to make the changes that are necessary today in education. And that is us in education. It's just very important to really look at that way. Well, let's talk about homecoming week. Starts up on September 30th and runs through the whole first week of October that way. Well, let's talk about school district needs assessment. That will be coming out soon in multiple ways. One on social media that way. We'll send it to our parents and different things that way. Then comments from building principals and administrators or superintendent and then board members. We talked about the board elections on November 5th. Ms. Hartung-Schrader talked about the community input and the community value in our CAPS program. That's our after-school program. Mr. Raker talked about the Monday morning shout-outs where we get everyone together in the middle school, high school building, 6 through 12, all staff, and talk about the good things that are going on and the accomplishments of our students, which is the most important thing. And we also talked then some about just space overall and the need for the extra space for our kids that way, and where we may be going next year with that. That way, when we look at our building, we have no more space. We got to be creative in what we do, and we'll make it happen one way or another. But on that note, I'm going to leave everybody. Have a good one. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the school. Believe in the Blue. Remember, there's a football game on Friday night at home versus Monticello. I encourage you to come out. I think the weather Friday night is going to be much better than it is right now as I'm doing this outside. It looks like it's raining fairly hard out there. Have a good one, everyone.